In this video series, we're going to look at how the Compose compiler plugin works. Let's start with the motivation. What the plugin does is that it takes a composable function like this. Here's an example of a test composable function that takes in a parameter which is an int value, and it calls another composable function. And what the compiler plugin does is that it auto-generates all of this code. It transforms the IR to add this information. The information that gets added are things such as adding a composer in the parameters and a bit mask called changed. It also adds in the ability to tell the composer to start or restart group. And it also adds in some bit masking logic to check basically if a value changed, and it sets the dirty value. And it also adds in logic to skip the composable function, and it wraps in the existing function body. So how does all of this work? So let's look at how compiler plugins hook into the Kotlin compiler. The Kotlin compiler, what it does is that it takes your code, in this example, and it converts it to a PSI. This happens in the front end of the compiler, and then it adds in semantics to understand the types in this tree. After that, the back end of the compiler comes in and converts it to intermediate representation that could be used to target any number of platforms. So this is the front end of the compiler, and right here is the back end of the compiler. And what I could do with the compiler plugin is that I could hook into these different phases, and I could do modifications, and I could add IR nodes to the tree. So the architecture of the compiler plugin is that it has a number of transformers, which is basically has a number of visitor methods, and it's looking at different IR types and is modifying them, adding modifications to them. There are 12 different transformers in the compiler plugin. We're going to look at each one of them. One of them we'll look at is called param transformer, and this job is very simple to be able to add in the composer parameter and the change bit mask. It doesn't do any function body modifications. There's another transformer for that. All of these transformers, they get applied in order, and they get applied in a class called compose IR generation extension, which is the entry point, and defines all of the transformers that are part of the compiler plugin, such as these. What we're going to look at in this video series is we're going to break down what these transformers do. You'll get a sneak peek into how you could do, what is the API to do modifications on IR. You'll get a preview of all the builders that are available. The compiler plugin also has utilities that are really useful that I'll share. We'll go into stability, we'll go into what that change bit mask is, and also go into how do you generate metrics on the Compose compiler plugin. So next up in the next video, we're going to look at the architecture of the Compose param transformer and how it works.